Mayor Lori Lightfoot makes a strong pitch for re-election, but declines to confirm that she's actually running. Dueling gas giveaways between Lightfoot and mayoral hopeful Willie Wilson, though, raise ethical concerns. And big money starts to flow into state races. All that and more in tonight's Spotlight Politics. Welcome back, Amanda Vinicky, Heather Sharon, and Paris Schutz. So Mayor Lightfoot was at the City Club of Chicago yesterday. She hasn't officially yet announced that she is running for re-election, but she did have this to say.
We have faced unprecedented challenges, and we have met those challenges head on with unprecedented resolve and coming together. And we've made a difference in the lives of our residents, and more to do. So thank you all for continuing to choose Chicago and the people who call it home. And oh, by the way, for those of you who came today expecting a different announcement, not today, but soon. Be patient. Thank you all.
And oh, by the way, it's hard to be patient, Heather. Why is she being coy about this?
Well, she clearly wants to make this announcement at a time and place in a way of her choosing. And of course, that's her right, but it is literally the worst kept secret in Chicago. What we heard in that City Club speech was 45 minutes of Mayor Lightfoot making the case that she has led Chicago through the COVID-19 pandemic and that Chicago's best days are ahead of it, and that she is going to reclaim the city's narrative and tell a story of all of the great things happening in Chicago. And oh, by the way, we're working on crime and public safety and things are getting better. And that is going to be the ground that the 2023 mayoral election is fought on, for good or for ill. And it is just about 10 months away.
Right. I mean, is there anyone who believes she's not running for mayor? Paris, as Heather just said, she sounded like a politician who's running, making the case and, standing on her record, the job that she's done as mayor. And we know that incumbents typically have the advantage in races like this. But as Heather said, is this her strongest pitch to voters, running on what she's already done in these last few years?
Yes, that's going to be the pitch she makes to voters, just going off of what Heather said and what she said at the City Club yesterday, that she is the mayor that guided the city through COVID and through a yet-to-be-seen robust economic recovery. She's saying that corporations are starting to relocate to Chicago in the same rate that they have for the last several years, #1 city in the country for corporate relocations. That's the case that Rahm Emanuel made. It's the case that she's making now. She'll also make the case that she, as mayor, has made massive public investments in South and West Side neighborhoods that have historically been neglected. She also said that the economic situation is going to be so good that there might be a budget surplus next year. Now, that's something that I have to take with a bit of skepticism, given Chicago's debt position, the debt that it's compiled as a city over the past several decades, and then the bereaved situation of its public pension system. So to say that Chicago's fiscal situation is, in positive territory and there's going to be a surplus, that's a hard one to believe. But again, the incumbent does have power, the power of incumbency, and there is a case to be made about Chicago's economic situation, but that public safety issue is going to be a road bump.
Now, of the declared candidates, Heather, who should Lightfoot's campaign team be most worried about? Is it Willie Wilson because of his money, or maybe it's someone who has not declared yet?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think everybody is waiting to see if somebody like U.S. Rep. Mike Quigley gets into the race, or somebody who can raise large amounts of money from Chicago's business community. And it's important, as Paris said, that the pitch that Lightfoot was making was to a room packed full of Chicago's business and nonprofit leaders, saying that Chicago was a great place to invest, a great place to start a business. And that really goes to the heart of the criticism that she has faced after leading the city through 3 very difficult years of unrest and soaring crime and pandemic. So, nobody thinks this field is set yet, but time is ticking for people to fish or cut bait.
Amanda, how important are the candidates' own sort of brands and their image here? Take, Lightfoot versus Willie Wilson's, for example.
So, I mean, Willie Wilson is certainly somebody who I think is known to anybody who has perhaps taken advantage not only of his gas giveaways, but also his cash giveaways. I think that there will be some voters who are skeptical about those sort of handouts, though, as Wilson will tell you, he has given a lot to charity in the past. But it's interesting when you look at personalities, of course, Lightfoot, it says that she's hard charging. You heard in her statements that were at the top of this segment that she's, sort of is something about bringing people together. I don't think that is something that those who work with her in the city council would agree with. Then again, you've had hard charging mayors in the past, and that was seen as a sign of respect with somebody such as Rahm Emanuel. So again, a lot of this is really going to depend on who else gets into the field, because by the way, some of that is where the dollars flow, and that's going to be part of this equation as well.
Now, as we heard earlier, Mayor Lightfoot's plan to use $12 million in city funds to give away prepaid gas cards advanced from the Budget Committee. But the vote was close, and there is clearly a lot of opposition. Here is what 40th Ward Alderman Andre VASQUEZ had to say.
The difference between what Willie Wilson is doing and what the city is doing is that Willie Wilson is coming out of his own pocket with his own money, whereas what's being proposed here is spending the taxpayer dollar to do the same. So I won't be in support of this should it make it to the council.
And of course, there's also the gas cards themselves. They have the mayor's name on them. Paris, isn't there a history of mayors putting their names on things like this?
Absolutely. Chicago is known for the mayor's imprimatur on things. Like, who can forget driving in from O'Hare or from the Skyway, seeing "Welcome to Chicago," Richard M. Daley, mayor, or driving on the tollway, open road tolling, Rod R. Blagojevich, governor. And then the best, Dan Sinker reminded me of Mayor Daley's graffiti blasters. Those were those little weird-looking vehicles that went around and blasted graffiti, as they said. And then, perhaps most pertinent to this, the first round of federal COVID stimulus checks, payments into people's pockets, was signed by former President Donald Trump. So politicians certainly love to put their name on things, especially when it involves cash going straight into people's pockets.
They want the voters to know where that money came from, kinda. So we just heard about some of the issues raised by the mayor's proposed gas giveaway. While that awaits a full city council vote, though, candidate Willie Wilson has announced that he's giving away another $1 million in gas on Saturday. Heather, does this raise any sort of ethical issues for him, or does he get sort of a pass because he's done this in the past?
Well, ethical issues maybe, but it's unlikely that he would face any sanctions from the Illinois State Board of Elections. If you cast your memory all the way back to 2018, he campaigned alongside former Governor Bruce Rauner and handed out cash to people who said they were having trouble paying their property taxes. A complaint was filed with that practice, and ultimately a decision was reached that because Willie Wilson has such a long history of philanthropic giving and that there was no explicit sort of vote for me or I won't give you this cash offer, that it was clear. But it's a question he's going to get a lot, especially if he continues to do these gas giveaways as we get into the thick of election season. Because, of course, is it maybe a little bit strange to get your gas tank filled up by the next mayor of Chicago, potentially? Uncharted territory, like everything else nowadays.
Some folks might be getting their gas tanks filled up by the current mayor of Chicago. So we're also seeing lots of money starting to flow into the governor's race. Amanda, what are the big takeaways there?
So yeah, I mean, and by the way, of course, money flowing as well from the state taxpayer dollars back to taxpayer dollars that will be credited to those legislators and governors. Well, I think folks getting tax rebate checks, by the way, those will be signed by somebody who is a constitutional officer running for re-election. So it's everywhere. In terms of this year's campaign, and this is actual campaign cash, not taxpayer dollars, we do see some movement. First of all, right now, if you've turned on your TV to anything but WTTW, you likely have seen an ad for either Richard Irvin or J.B. Pritzker, likely both. They are the big spenders at this point in time, each spending, I believe it was about $10 million so far. And we still have quite a ways away. By the way, it's not just them. Some more money pumping in from Dick Uihlein. You probably know the products. Line, big conservative donor, going in some more for another Republican candidate, and that is Darren Bailey. By the way, Also, sort of a blast from the past, Dan Proft, who had closed down his political action committees previously. They'd been funded by Uline. Now Proft is back. He has a PAC. He is airing commercials going up against Richard Irvin. So you're really seeing the GOP battle it out.
And not to mention, he has a radio show on 560 AM every morning. I want to just bring up one little tidbit about that, too. We saw $1,000 from Colonel Jennifer Pritzker to not her cousin, J.B. Pritzker, but to Richard Irvin. Colonel Pritzker is a Republican, and Colonel Pritzker did spend millions in trying to defeat Governor Pritzker's graduated income tax proposal. But it's interesting to see maybe a family feud there a little bit, although $1,000 from a Pritzker literally is not even the equivalent of the penny that you find in between the couch cushion.
So, Amanda, the state's richest man, though, Republican backer Ken Griffin, he's getting involved in the judicial races, but Democrats are trying to limit his influence. What's going on there?
Yeah, so this is, I mean, we're going to see a whole lot going on in the judicial branch, particularly for some Illinois state Supreme Court seats, because it's often sort of the forgotten branch of the three-legged government. But really important there, the majority of the state's high court is up for grabs. You saw at the end, and really, I don't know if it was 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. on the final day of the legislative session or what, but Democrats passing a measure that limits the amount of money that can be put into some of these PACs, including one that you just saw Ken Griffin last week give $10 million to, actually nearly $11 million to, and that is the Campaign for Judicial Fairness, which has been out in front already trying to make the case for Republicans running for the state Supreme Court, and I assume got that money in under the wire before any sort of bill action could be taken that would have limited future contributions.
Okay, so federal prosecutors, they also announced on Monday that they would not be filing federal or any criminal charges against former police officer Jason Van Dyke in the killing of Laquan McDonald back in 2014. Paris, was this a surprise? Sometimes it can be, because nobody knows what the federal government's going to do.
Right. No, I don't think it was a surprise decision. The federal government said that this is a civil rights case, so they would have had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Van Dyke went out that night with the intention to murder Laquan McDonald, and it wasn't just, just bad policing or he got afraid or something, and that would require getting into Van Dyke's head. So what they acknowledge is it's something that they likely were a case that they were likely to lose. It was such a high bar set. They also said, given the sensitivity of this, that they talked to McDonald's family, they presented this to them, McDonald's family agreed and was okay with this decision.
U.S. Attorney John Lausch said that McDonald's family, as you said, that they were in agreement not to pursue a second prosecution in any way. I think Bobby Rush, U.S. representative, issued a separate statement saying something different, that the family that he is in contact with had not heard from John Lausch. But as you said, they said it would be a very high bar for prosecutors to get that second prosecution. Heather, does this mean that is this pretty much the end of it as far as any other charges for Van Dyke?
Yes, I think this does close the book on this chapter of the Laquan McDonald case. Of course, the city is still attempting to reform the police department, in large part because of the problems that were discovered through a 2017 Department of Justice investigation that was prompted by Laquan McDonald's murder. And the ramifications politically continue to reverberate today. Of course, we saw former Mayor Rahm Emanuel face very hard questions about his handling it during his confirmation hearings as an ambassador of Japan.
Okay, so former Alderman Danny Solis's bribery trial, it came to an abrupt halt last week after attorneys for the city said they wanted to reserve the right to be heard, claiming that the city was also a victim of his crimes. This kind of seemed to come out of left field. Heather, I think there's been some new developments on that. What's going on?
That's right. We don't know what arguments the city is going to make. They had until today to file their case with the judge. We haven't seen that filing yet, and I was unable to get a response from the mayor's office. But we did hear from Alderman Byron Sigcho Lopez, who replaced Solis in 2019, and he asked the judge to hold Solis accountable, saying that his corruption caused, quote, generational harm in Pilsen and on the near west side. He holds Solis responsible for leading to the displacement of 1,000 Mexican Americans who were really pushed out of their homes as that real estate market took off with gentrification, fueled in no small part, he argues, with Solis's support of those changes. And he had almost total control over that, not only as the alderman of the 25th ward, but also chair of the zoning committee, which meant that what he said went, and Alderman Sigcho Lopez says that's really where that harm came from.
That's right. We had Alderman Sigcho Lopez on the show here last night. Heather, we've got about 20 seconds. Really quick backstory on Alderman Solis and what his status is.
Well, he is expected to, he has pled not guilty, but he has already admitted that he took a bribe from a company that had business pending before the zoning committee. However, he is unlikely to spend a day in jail or lose his city pension because, of course, he wore a wire in the federal probes of former House Speaker Michael Madigan and Alderman Ed Burke. We'll learn more tomorrow afternoon in court.
All right, that's a mouthful, and I know you'll be watching it for us. Heather Sharon, Amanda Vinicky, Paris Schutz. Thanks, everybody.